So Azure Integration Services is a collection of four primary capabilities in Azure. So when customers think about how they build solutions, they typically don't snap to products and services. They think in terms of the problems they're trying to solve. Yeah. So we have logic apps for orchestration and workflow. We have Service Bus for messaging and eventing with Grid. And then we have API management to allow you to create, consume, and publish APIs. So these four things come together. So you can take APIs that already exist, you can create new APIs, you can publish logic apps as APIs, and kind of connect these things together. And of course, you can use messaging and Grid to do event-driven or message-based pub-sub type patterns using Azure Integration Services.
So it's a collection of sort of products, really.
It is, yeah. What we're pushing on is actually making them work great together. So you can use them separately, and that's totally fine. Yep. But we have kind of smarts in there that we're building on to actually be able to take them and use them as a part of a bigger thing. So in API management, as an example, you can go to the portal and you can choose a logic app from API management and publish it as an API. And the same way we have Service Bus connectivity built in with a whole rich set of capabilities there. Same with Grid, so you can actually start off with Event Grid in, say, storage, click on the little lightning bolt in the portal, and it'll generate a logic app for you and wire the two things up. Yeah. So there's got to be some product truth behind it. It's not just a messaging and marketing thing. It's actually making these things work great together to implement solutions.
That's really interesting. So how, if I were, say, starting out, I'm a new Azure developer, and you have these integration services, what would be a scenario where I should consider using it?
So that's a great question, because when we look at what customers are using it for today, they use it for a whole variety of things. Everything from traditional integration patterns, things like pub sub, as I mentioned, to more modern things like event-driven, where you're doing things like change data capture. You've got maybe a database on premises like SQL, and you want to actually push real-time changes from that database into some system in cloud. Yep. So what we're seeing a lot of people doing, one piece of commonality is everyone's kind of started off on premises, right? And in fact, a lot of people still have the majority of their stuff on-prem. Yeah. So they start to look at the utility they can get by moving to the cloud. So they do it in pieces. So maybe they implement something brand new in Azure, and then they need to connect back to the data sources on-prem, behind line of business systems. So they can kind of take their time and do it in a staged way, using logic apps and messaging and API management to kind of connect these things together. So rather than just figuring out how you kind of boil the ocean, pick it all up and move it, you can actually do it in pieces.
I think that makes a lot of sense, because there's not a lot of companies or businesses that I know of that will take everything and move it in one go. It's always a bit by bit, right?
It's an impossible problem, right?
Yeah, so, I find that really interesting. So I've used logic apps a little bit, tiny bit, and I don't know if my understanding is correct, so I'm hoping you can correct me if not. But it's a way of putting together various different entities, I guess, with actions. Is that right?
If you boiled it right down, it's workflow and orchestration. So the difference between those things is often, is there a human involved, or is it system to system, right? Yes. So orchestration tends to be, maybe you've got something like Dynamics or SAP, and you're moving invoices to trading partners, right? This completely automated process. But at some point, there'll be somebody typing data into one of these systems, and that's what's driving it. So we kind of have aspects of both. Yeah. Now, when you bring people into the mix, they tend to be long running. Because when you send an email and you're waiting for a response, they may not respond for hours, days, weeks, months even. So logic apps can run for a longer period of time and actually sit on that, waiting for responses to come back before they continue. Mm-hmm. So yeah, one's got a fundamental difference.
That kind of makes sense, but what about like the logic part of the logic apps? Like there's a much larger picture to it, I think. Is that right?
That's right, yeah. I mean, obviously when you're this is the difference between something like a pipeline pattern, where you're just doing one thing after the other in a predefined sequence, to, no, I want to make decisions and do branching or looping over the data that I'm receiving. So you start to mash up these services and APIs together to do something more interesting, more powerful. Uh-huh. So the logic part of this is having a graphical way of expressing essentially what you traditionally do in code, if then else type patterns or for each loops or do untils and others, even switch case we have in logic apps, to be able to visually program very quickly in a productive web-based UI, but getting the sort of richness that you'd expect from a programming language with all of the built-in connectors, so you kind of have all of these things just in a toolbox so you can quickly assemble into a solution.
It's so powerful, right? Because you could almost do this as a non-developer, is that right?
That's right, yeah. I mean, so our sister team is Microsoft Flow. So Logic Apps and Flow together it's the same product, different experiences for different audiences, right?
Yes.
All the way from business users with integration with Flow in Dynamics, integration with Flow in Excel, and SharePoint, which are really popular scenarios for using Flow because it's just right there. So doing document approvals, right? But you can also turn your flows into Logic Apps and then start bringing in more and more Azure services. So you can do more and more powerful things, including things like connecting to back-end ERP systems on premises and a whole bunch of other things. So yeah, we see it really as a continuum of experience, right? So a lot of people actually use both for that very reason. I use Flow to kind of do email automation and other things, so like personal productivity stuff, but I can use it for full-blown integration as well. And then we have Logic Apps, which is, because it's in Azure, has all of these Azure services in easy reach to kind of plug together as well.
So, but you could do email flows in Logic Apps as well, couldn't you?
You could, yes, but Flow does have some differentiated features. It has an approval portal to do more kind of complex approvals besides just sending an email with an approval button on it. So, which is specifically built for the people and the audiences it's meant to attract, which is business users, knowledge workers, office users, to actually have these capabilities right there in front of them.
So where would I go if I wanted to start with any integration service, but also Logic Apps as such?
So you can just go to the Azure portal. If you've never used Azure before, just sign up for a free trial. Then you'll see right on the kind of left-hand side of the portal, there's an integration menu. Click on that, you will see Logic Apps, Event Grid, API Management, Service Bus right there, along with a few other things. And you can just pick a Logic App and try it out. Well, as I said, if you already have a storage account, which is one of the most, if not the most popular service in Azure, right? Because everybody needs storage. Then you can click on the lightning bolt that I mentioned and actually generate a Logic App from that, and then you're just right there in the designer, and you can start to see the connectors we have and play around with it.
That's fantastic. So you heard it here. Go sign up for Azure if you haven't already, and give it a go. Just try out the Logic Apps and all the other integration services for that matter, because it's. I know Logic Apps better than the other sides of it, and it's just so powerful. So thanks very much, Jon. Really appreciate it.
Right,
Thank you. Cheers.